Alistair, what do you think is the biggest improvement and difference that the internet can bring to both politics and society as a whole?
I think the biggest improvement that it can bring is through the sense of engagement that it can give people with all the things that they're interested in, and also the impact that an individual can have in a process of change. I think it's made, done properly, I think it should improve the relations between politics and the public. Now at the moment I'm not sure that the politicians necessarily get that. I think there's still very much a sort of feeling that, you know, command control communications is the way to do it, and that you've got a message and your job is to get the message out there. Now that's still true, but I think what the social networks in particular have done is given a greater equality of voice, so that actually somebody who says something interesting, somebody who makes a really poignant observation about a politician or about a political process, really can have an impact because of the way that, provided what they say is telling and important and strong and clear, that they might only have 15 followers on Twitter, but that can go if they say something really, really vital. And I think that sense that it's opening up a different sort of dialogue between the governed and governments around the world, I think that's a good thing.
Part of our Digital Future campaign, we've spoken to Jimmy Wales of Wikipedia and Jeff Mulgan, the CEO of Nesta, and the view came across that one of the biggest threats to the internet was the creation of misinformed legislation, based on the fear that many MPs were out of touch with the internet and technology. So therefore, do you think that we can trust governments and politicians to govern the internet?
I can see why they say that, and instinctively there's a big part of me agrees with the idea that the internet is changing so quickly, it's global, very difficult for governments, country by country, to have any kind of real impact over that. But at the same time, I mean, governments are governments, they're elected by people to make decisions about the world around them. And I think it's naive to think that because the internet can be a force for good, which it is, that there won't then be opened the door to the possibility that it becomes a force for bad, and which then politicians have a legitimate and I think necessary duty to look at some of the impact on that. Now it doesn't mean they then, where I agree with them, misinformed legislation, fine. But I think it's naive to think there might not come a point where actually there will be issues flowing from the internet that politicians really do have to take a look at it. Now, what they then do about it is a very, very difficult question. I think the internet has totally changed. It's changed the mainstream media. It's changed the so-called new media. It's you know, politics and business and leisure. They're operating in a completely different way to how they were when I was growing up. In fact, how I was when I left Downing Street 10 years ago, it's completely changed. If you think, for example, that I was thinking the other day that people say, well, you know, God, the world's changed since you were there. Twitter didn't even exist when I left Downing Street, let alone when I started. I mean, it's just, you know, so YouTube, Google, Facebook, Twitter, these are new phenomena. And I think that at the moment, it sort of works okay. And I'm instinctively with them on this, but I think it's naive to think there might not come a point where the potential negative side of the internet reaches a point where politicians do have to do something.